I'm going to give you a comprehensive walkthrough of Google's Government Documents and Services policy. I'm going to explain what the policy is, how it applies to 4 different types of situations, how you can get certified, how you can request an exclusion, as well as talk about why you're probably still having all sorts of disapprovals and weird issues, even if you've gone through some of those things, and what you can do about it. And if you don't know who I am, my name is John from StubGroup. We are a Google Premier partner and the #1 resource in the world for fixing Google suspensions and policy issues. So let's dig into government documents and services and lay out the land here. So first of all, Google has their policy on one particular page as a subcategory under their other restricted businesses policy. And you should definitely read through this page, this policy, to make sure you're as familiar with things as possible. Of course, I'm going to walk you through as part of this video as well, how it all works. And then from this page, there are links to a certification process that we'll go through where you can request certification or an exclusion. So let's go through first the 4 categories of situations where this policy applies, and then we'll dig into more in depth after that. The first is actual governments, federal, state, local, that are providing documents or services. That would be category number 1. The second category would be non-government authorized providers. So this would be businesses, organizations, even individuals who are authorized by the government to provide these documents or services, but who are not themselves part of the government. The third category would be a particular set of businesses where there are some regional, some geographic exclusions, and we'll go through that, where there are some types of documents or services in some regions that are excluded from this policy. And then the fourth category would be businesses who do not actually fall under the scope of this policy, but who are running into disapprovals or suspensions or policy issues and limitations related to this policy. So let's go through the first category, which is actual governments. This is pretty easy and straightforward, relatively speaking. So if you're actually a government and you need to get certified with Google, you're going to go to this form that Google provides. You're going to select the option that you qualify as a government provider, and you'll go through the form. So you would put the domain that you are using in your ads, contact name, the name of whatever department, whatever you're part of, email address, ad account, etc., documentation. So that's relatively straightforward. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. The second category is if you qualify as a authorized but non-government provider. I'm going to spend a lot of time here because there are a lot of organizations that fall into this category. So it's very important. The most important thing here is that you need to have a link that is on a government website and that links to your website. And in the context of that link, it needs to be clear that you are authorized to provide the documents, the services that you are facilitating. It's not sufficient to just have your business name or your personal name on a website. There has to actually be a link on a government website. It could be federal government, it could be state, it could be county, some kind of local government website, but it has to be a gov website and it has to be linking to your website. If you do not have that link, even if you have other documentation from a government saying you are allowed to do what you're doing, if you do not have a link that Google is able to find and access and confirm, then you probably are not going to be able to get certified because that's very, very important to Google. Now, in addition to having a link, you also want to make sure that your website is very clear about your relationship with the government provider. You want to just be explicit and clear about what the relationship is, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. You should probably potentially link to the website that is linking back to you for additional confirmation, but make it as clear as possible to actual visitors as well as to Google themselves on your website what that connection is with the governmental body that is authorizing you to do these things. So if you qualify as this, there's a link to your website from a government website, then you can go through this form here. So you're going to, again, provide the domain that you're using in your ads. And this certification is domain specific. If you change your domain in the future, you're going to have to go through the certification again. And obviously that different domain is going to have to be on a government website. And then you're going to put the website, the government website that is linking to your domain, your name, company name, email address, etc. And then if you have any additional documentation from the government giving you the authorization to do what you're doing, then include that documentation as well. And so that is what you would submit to Google through that form. Now, Even if you have the link, there's a very good chance that you're going to still have back and forth with Google support. We see this all the time because we help a lot of clients go through this process, and it's very common for the initial certification to not be initially accepted, and then have to go back and forth with Google support and answer whatever questions they have, or reaffirm, yes, here is the link that is linking to us, it's all legit, stuff like that. So that is very normal. After you are certified, you also will probably still see that your ads say they are eligible limited. And we'll have people reaching out to us saying, well, hey, we're certified, but it says limited. Does that mean the certification isn't there? Like, what's going on? And what it means, generally speaking, is simply that Google is correctly categorizing that your ads do fall under this government documents and services policy. But if it says eligible limited, they are eligible. And so the certification is there, is in Google's system, and you will be able to run those ads and get traffic. So don't be too concerned if it says eligible limited. It probably will, but that's not a disapproval. Obviously, if the ad is a disapproved, that is a different issue, and you got to work through that. And you may still have disapprovals. Again, it's not uncommon at all for you to have certification for your ad account and yet to still have Google's automated system disapproving various ads in your account. And so you will probably still have to have back and forth with Google. And again, this is one of the things that we do often for our clients, is doing that back and forth with Google when the ads get disapproved, going back to them and saying, no, the ad should not be disapproved because you have the certification, et cetera, et cetera. It's usually a lot of time and energy that has to be invested into keeping the ads active, even if you've already gone through certification. Now, the third category here would be qualifying for regional or business exclusions. So on the policy page from Google, that again, you need to read and be aware of where things are at. They have a whole list of different types of documents and services that fall under this policy. And then there are some exclusions for various things. So for example, criminal background checks. Let's say that you facilitate criminal background checks. Well, there's a list of 4 countries here: Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and Spain, where you do not need to qualify as a government or authorized provider in order to provide criminal background checks. Now, you still have to go through the form with Google, but you're essentially applying for a local exclusion. And so in that form, you would select I qualify for regional or business exclusion, and you'd go through the form, again, your domain, what category of documents or services you're providing, and there's a drop-down menu here, and then which region you are targeting, or what is your excluded business, name, company name, email address, documentation, etc. The fourth category, and I'll spend a lot of time on this one as well because many businesses fall into this category, would be businesses that are somehow adjacent to government documents and services, but that are not actually authorized by Google to provide documents and services, and who are not actually providing these documents and services. So there's a lot of businesses in, let's say, the consulting, the preparation space, who will provide information, guidance, help, that is adjacent to and related to different government documents and services, but that are not explicitly actually applying for those services and getting those documents for you on your behalf. And so this is where things get very nuanced and very tricky, and where Google is really bad at understanding those nuances. And so it takes a lot of work to get things right here. So if you fall into this category of being outside the scope of Google's policy, there's a couple of things to do. First of all, on your website, you need to be really, really clear about why you do not fall under scope of this policy. So you can't make it look like you are actually providing documents or services that you're actually applying or submitting on behalf to customers, to government service providers. You need to be really careful about the keywords, the actual words and messaging that you use, to make it super clear what you do and what you don't do, because Google's automated system and their reviewers manually are looking for those types of things. And you need to have appropriate disclaimers explaining, again, what you do and what your relationship you do or don't, in this case, have with governmental providers. And generally speaking, you want to actually link to the government provider and say, hey, if you want, you can go directly to the government provider to get this document or service. So let's say that you provide consulting related to getting one of these documents. You would say, hey, here's what we do. We help you figure out what information that you need in order to submit to the government to get this particular document that you want, but we don't submit on your behalf. We help you with this, and then you go and submit because we can't help you we can't submit it on your behalf. We just help you get to the place where you would submit. So the language and the messaging around that on both the website and the ad copy is extremely important. and requires a lot of nuanced thinking about what you say and what you don't say. Now, on the keyword targeting side of things, you can target pretty much any keywords, but the more closely related those keywords are to government names, the names of documents, the names of forms, things like that, the more likely it is that Google's going to be flagging your ads, thinking that you are falling under the scope of this government documents or services policy. So there aren't really restrictions on what keywords you target, but there is a spectrum in terms of the likelihood of whether or not your ads are going to get flagged by Google, and you're going to have to go through this process depending upon what keywords you target. And then again, what keywords are in your ad copy and on your website. There's a few, tricks of the trade that we found as we work with clients and helping them through this process. And one is that we'll often try to get some ads approved in the ad account before we submit the form with Google to apply for an exclusion to say that this policy does not apply to us, because we found it helpful for when Google's policy team reviews that appeal exclusion request, for there to actually be some active approved ads in the account when they do that review. And so assuming that you've gotten to that place, you've got some approved ads, now you're going through this form to request this exclusion from Google. Again, you put your domain here, you put a description of the business that you are promoting and why you are targeting keywords that are triggering Google to think that you are in this government documents and services area. And then you need to, do this warranty here. You need to put your name and information, email address, etc., any documentation that pertains, and then submit. And it's very, very common for your initial exclusion request to not be accepted, and for then there to be back and forth with Google support and policy team about why you don't actually fall within this policy. So very, very normal and common. Now let's talk about some frequently asked questions. These are questions that businesses, that clients often ask us that relate to government documents and services. First of all is, how do you know if you've been certified or if your exclusion request has been accepted? So the way that Google notifies you is via email. And frustratingly, there is no notification in your ad account that says you have this certification or you have this exclusion. So there's no way to go into your ad account and explicitly see the information. Now, if you are advertising in this space and your ads are eligible limited, that is usually a pretty good indicator that the exclusion or the certification has been applied, because if it hadn't, then your ads would probably be disapproved. But the only official confirmation would be an email that Google sends you saying that you have it. And then if you don't have that email, or maybe someone else in the past submitted who no longer works at the company or agency or whatever, you can reach out to Google support and you can ask them, and maybe you'll get a right answer. I say maybe because sometimes you don't, but sometimes you do. Another question people ask is, why does Google say my ads are limited when I have gone through certification or the exclusion request? And like I mentioned earlier in this video, this is expected behavior. This is Google saying that the policy does apply to your ads. That's where limited comes from. But they're also saying your ads are eligible to run, which means that you're okay. And so those ads can run, they can get impressions, clicks, etc. And you're probably never going to get rid of that limited status because it's just Google saying, hey, the policy pertains to your ads. Another question people often ask would be, why does Google keep disapproving my ads? And this is super frustrating. And unfortunately, this is expected behavior. Google constantly, even if you've gone through certification, even if you've gone through exclusion request, they're probably going to be disapproving your ads at various points. And it's just part of what you have to do in this space is spending time appealing ads, going back and forth with Google support, explaining why the ad should be approved, getting them approved, next week doing the same thing. It's just, it happens, and it's frustrating, and it takes a lot of time. It's one of the things that we invest our time into when we're working with clients in this space, but it is a thing, and will probably continue to happen. Another question would be, why is Google approving some of my ads and disapproving other of my ads? You might even have a situation where you have the exact same text, exact same ad in two different ad groups, and one is approved and one is disapproved. And the only real answer to this is that Google is extremely inconsistent. And again, that's a thing that will continue to be a thing. There's not a great explanation for why Google is so inconsistent, but they are. And so if you have disapproved ads, you're just going to have to work through the appeal process and go back and forth with Google, often over and over again, to get those ads approved. Another question would be, can I change my ads? So here's a tip. Once your ads are approved and you've successfully gone through a certification and exclusion, limit how much you change your ads, because every time you make a change to your ad, you are kind of resetting Google's review of the ad, and many times it will get disapproved. So if you have to change your ads, obviously you have to change your ads, but don't do it willy-nilly, as they say, because you will have lots more disapprovals every time you change your ads, most likely. Another question would be, do you have to certify a subdomain? So a domain would be example.com. A subdomain would be get.example.com. And the short answer is no, you do not have to separately certify subdomains. But that said, we have some anecdotal experience saying that if your subdomain looks significantly different from your main domain, that does increase the likelihood of having ad disapprovals and issues, even if you've already got certified or gotten the exclusion request accepted, because Google just is a little weirded out, let's say, and confused about what's going on. So you can use subdomains, you don't have to certify them separately, but beware that may trigger more ad disapprovals. So I hope this is helpful. As you can tell, there is a lot to Google's government docs and services policy, and a lot of nuance when it comes to how Google enforces it, what you need to have in your ads and on your website, and how you fill out the certification form with Google, and then how you have that back and forth with Google support after the case. And so if you want help, if you want guidance, if you want people to do that work for you so that you can just focus on your actual business and not dealing with Google's hoops, we'd love to help. Reach out through StubGroup.com and let's talk.